Welcome to the Live Recess podcast,
where we journey together toward unlocking a more compassionate experience with ourselves, others, and the universe.
Through meaningful interactions, we aim to detach from our thoughts and feelings in order to spark light.
Whether you're seeking a moment of peace,
a new perspective,
or a deeper understanding of yourself and the world around you,
this is your sign to take a recess.
Hi Bailey, how are you?
Hello. Doing good today. How are you?
I am so good. I'm really excited to hear about your conversation with Kelly Goodwin of Mac Plus Mitchell. Obviously, we know that I am a homemade cleaning product, not so much face product because I'm scared, so that's also why I'm excited, but home good product queen when it comes to the DIY, but also it's scary. So I'm really excited to learn a lot about what goes into it. And I don't know what you guys talked about, but I can't wait to find out. And can you give us a little bit of a sneak peek of what you all chatted about and a little bit of Kelly's background?
Absolutely. So Kelly Goodwin is actually kind of one of our family friends. I grew up with her. She was my mom's college roommate. And so over the past, 26 years since she graduated college, she has spent that time doing medical sales actually in the medical field. So she has this awesome network of people to kind of vet out her personal venture, which is founding Mac Plus Mitchell, which is a, non-toxic home and skincare product company. And so she also is, certified as a holistic health coach and aromatherapist, and then wife and mom of 3. So not only does she have this awesome network and some certifications behind her, she has spent so many years experimenting, evolving, helping with her own illnesses, her community, her kids, all that fun stuff. So her products are awesome. She has a wide range of things that she offers. And so we kind of dig into the background and inspiration for her company. Everyone has their own experience with wellness. So she kind of unpacks where this drive came from and how she kind of moved out of her career in the traditional medical field and moving into this more holistic environment while still holding on to that traditional medicine and being able to be backed by that scientific component, which is awesome. And then, the importance of non-toxic living. And so thinking about there's a fine line kind of between convenience and then just also understanding what our needs are as a human and allowing ourselves to be healthy. So she definitely dives into that and just minimizing exposure to those toxins, and then wraps up by kind of talking about some projects that she has ahead, and then drop some breadcrumbs about how she'll be joining us in the fall for the retreat. So we're so excited to have her and allowing you all to kind of listen in, get to know her better, and do some DIY non-toxic products, have things that you can bring home with you, learn about the importance of this, and just kind of evolve your mindset around, why am I so reliant on these more convenient products? And how can I meet myself somewhere in the middle where I'm not like, doing a chemistry project in my kitchen every single day, but also, not poisoning myself and my family. So there's somewhere to be in the middle, and I'm excited for you guys to learn more.
Yay. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited too. Yeah, I think convenience is amazing and it's not going to go away unless you have a ridiculous amount of time. So I know I am thrilled to unpack how I can find that balance, like you said. So let's get into it. You guys, thanks for joining us today on the Live Recess podcast. Please enjoy this time with Kelly Goodwin.
We'll see you on the other side. Thanks. Okay, so from my standpoint, it really feels like you've kind of mastered this field that is outside of your main business. We know each other personally, so I know that you have spent quite a few years in the medical field, which is more the traditional Western sort of medicine. And so now on the side, you're kind of doing this whole other thing. So I can only imagine how conflicting that can be and difficult sometimes being in both settings. Is that accurate to kind of what you do?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think over time, like, used to, I was completely Western medicine.
Mhm.
And then, just different instances, running directly to the doctor's office for different treatment for things. And then as I became more and more exposed to my own health issues and trying to uncover those and getting super frustrated,
Mhm.
and then basically doing a lot of research on my own, then I have kind of now gone over to a holistic approach first. And then if over time that still is not correcting it, then I still feel like there's a need for Western medicine. But
Right.
I do feel like a lot of it can be treated holistically without constantly running to the doctor, being put on scripts,
Yeah.
and then those end up building up into your body. Then you have resistance, so then you're having to be switched to another antibiotic and so forth.
So you've spent a long time in, like, medical sales, correct? Like,
Correct.
you are in Western medicine, like, you're surrounded by doctors and that industry outside of just, if your kids are sick or if you get sick, but you fully, like, spend all of your time in that space, right?
Yes. And the type of sales I do is for peripheral vascular disease. So I see a lot of patients that are diabetic patients,
Gee.
have heart issues,
Mhm.
overweight. I mean, just all these different things that, over time could possibly be prevented by, taking care of their health
Right.
initially and not having to take care of it to that extreme on the back end.
Right, right. Which is so sad, obviously, they just don't know,
Mhm.
but Could taking it, like, a 10 steps backwards, when you grew up, was h wait, did you live in, like, a health-conscious home at all?
I wouldn't say it was health conscious. Excuse me. I mean, my parents did have a garden, and
Mm,
but I think a lot of that was how they grew up. With
mhm,
farming, was one reason for the garden, but also the garden was there for financial reasons too,
mm,
because it was cost savings to be able to do that on your own. Um, I don't really recall going to the doctor frequently or being sick, very frequently, but I do know that, you know, we grew up in a setting where if something was wrong with us, we were taken to the doctor.
right,
It was immediate. And even as my parents have gotten older, it was kind of that thing that they trusted and believed anything that was told to them versus still doing their own research and kind of being independent of their own health. And it was several years down the road. I mean, my mom was probably at this point late 60s when she really started trying to look
oh, wow,
into all the different issues that she was having and really researching it.
mm,
Um, that she then kind of, started exposing my sister and myself to it a little bit more, making us a little bit more open and aware of it. Um, and she just felt like, too, with my background, and what I kind of already knew with the medicine itself, that I would be able to understand a little bit more easily, be able to explain it to her. Yeah.
so you kind of glossed over this concept of, like, kind of lack of autonomy and care growing up. I have the same experience where you're scared, you're sick, something happens, and you're like, "Oh, I need to go to this other person that's so much more knowledgeable than I am so they can help and fix me." And it's not easy to change that mindset, and it sounds like your mom kind of was able to do that initially and then support you and your sister in that. But can you kind of elaborate how you feel like your mom and your sister were able to shift your mindset of, I know my body, I know myself, I can be knowledgeable about these things, I can look into these things and trust that, nothing bad about doctors. Doctors are amazing and they're so,
Oh,
so,
yes.
so
Mhm.
necessary, but, you don't have to totally rely on them. It's not so black and white. So where's that, how did that shift happen for you?
I think initially, like all three of my children were, had eczema, had allergies, were on inhalers,
Mhm.
and I kind of got first turned over to essential oils, diffusing essential oils, and using those on them. And then within a matter of 2 to 3 weeks, saw a dramatic change in them, that they became, were able to get off all of their medication. So at
Wow.
that point, then I really started to look at other things in my home, and with them having eczema, looking at the detergent that I was using, looking at all these different things to uncover. And then slowly but surely, just through the research and what I learned, that I was not even aware of, basically then trying to eliminate and replace it with other things in my home.
Wow. So to catch people up, Kelly owns a business. It's called Mac Plus Mitchell, and I'll let you kind of describe it because I don't want to, take your thunder or say it inaccurately. But if you want to kind of introduce the organization that you own now and what kind of products you have.
Yes. So it's Mac Plus Mitchell. It's actually named after my twin daughters' middle names. And I actually formulate and make clean beauty products, and then also just a few cleaning products for your home. Um, it started as initial type of, just kind of fun, sitting around, what we would call making potions. And then, we started to make even more things. We were physically using them in our home, on our skin. And then it became, different things that we just migrated to that we really, really loved. And so my girls wanted to actually start gifting it to people one year for Christmas. And I'm like, we're going to have to name this. We're going to have to put ingredients on it. No one's going to know what it is. And so that's kind of where the name Mac Plus Mitchell came from, their middle names. And then it was through that people would ask us later, like, where did you get this? Like, I want more. I'm like, I made it. So that's kind of how it started. And it kind of just grew as a hobby to a certain extent. But then people were like, oh, you need a website. Can I get this, somewhere else? Where can I get it? And so it's in the process now of, to that, the growing pains, I guess. And it's continually to grow each week. And so that's kind of where we're at now.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, from a business standpoint, I know that you still work full time. So,
yes,
and
I
you
do
have
still
3
work full
kids.
time. Yes.
So,
And back to I guess one other thing too is during COVID, everybody had a lot of more free time. And so during that time frame, I guess through the years, I had went to integrative nutrition, became a holistic health coach, then got an interest in aromatherapy more because I was using the essential oils and knowing how they were used. So then I got certified as a aromatherapist. And then through that, I came in contact with a lady in New York who had been in clean beauty for over 20 years. She was teaching courses online that you could learn how to formulate. You could learn a little bit about the industry. So then I thought, well, why not? I'm already doing this. I need to be a little bit more educated about it. So I then took her course, and that's kind of where I was then like, okay, some of the stuff that I was mixing here and there, it needs to be a little bit more technical, a little bit more scientific behind it. And so just kind of learning all the different ways to naturally preserve products, when you're using oil and water, the different pHs you have to check for, and mold, all these different things that you have to look out for. So,
right. Wow. Yeah, it sounds like you kind of went into this and like a selfish, just excited to learn about these things for yourself and your family, and then we're able to kind of turn it into something that impacts your community and people outside your community, because you have an online site and it can be accessed anywhere, which is awesome.
yes.
So from a science standpoint, just to kind of give people the bare minimum starting point, how would you define toxins? Because like anything can really be toxic when you use it too much. Like if you're
Right.
water can become toxic, even, clean water. If you drink too much of it, then it's toxic to your organs and you drown. But kind of how would you explain in your own definition what toxins are and, what you know about them now?
So toxins in general to me are just anything that, we come in contact with them just in our environment with pollutants, just different chemicals that are in ingredients of products, all these different things, different types of foods that we possibly eat and how they were processed, a lot of processed foods. So these are all different types of toxins. And when you really look at the ingredients of these, or how they were grown, then of course that's what toxins are. But then there's, toxin burden where you may have exposed yourself to this through several years and
Mm,
have never seen any changes in your own health. But then after 15 years or 20 years of using these products, then you start to see something called a toxic burden where it builds up into your body, and then you're not able to detoxify that and process that out of your body properly.
wow. Yeah, so it sounds like toxins are more what we're talking about today is kind of that man-made chemical that were created initially, in a positive sense for to preserve things, make them last longer. No one knew that they were going to be toxic, obviously, when they were initially
Correct.
invented. And now over time, we're discovering that these things can be harmful, especially like what you're talking about with this buildup of this burden. So, can you talk about kind of the implications on well-being and how this kind of shows up for people if they might be experiencing toxic burden, which I'm assuming pretty much everyone does, unless you're living in the woods and you have a super, super organic, crunchy mom, which is great. And maybe your kids, but.
Well, I think a lot of it too is from culture, because
Totally.
when my grandparents were living, it was more of a slower pace farming, that type of environment. And then we've gone through an era of everything being fast, wanting everything
Mhm.
fast because we're so busy and on the go. So then there's more processed foods, more things for people to grab that are easy, or we want to put preservatives in here that are going to make it last XYZ for amount of time, and
Yeah.
not really knowing the effects, of the product. So, for me personally, um, I mean, this is, something that shows buildup in my own body. Um, Probably in college, I started having a lot of gut issues. And
Mm.
those have just continued through the years. Me trying to do just different things to kind of correct it on its own, kind of switching over to a more clean diet, eliminating processed foods. And then each time I make these changes, then I see an actual change in my physical health. And
Mm.
so, but recently I found out that I have a gene mutation called MTHFR. And so that is basically where my body does not detox naturally on its own. So I have to kind of give it assistance to detox. But other people that have had toxins and are unaware and then have toxic burden, they might see this in like different fertility issues, respiratory issues, gut issues, all the different autoimmune disorders that are out there. All this could be related to toxic burden and a buildup in their
Mm.
bodies. And then some of it even to the form of something more chronic, something more life threatening like cancer and so forth.
Right. Before we dig into that, I kind of want to make a comment again about the convenience aspect that you touched on. I think it's so interesting to kind of think about this mindset that everyone has that we probably unconsciously subscribe to of, what's easier is what we're going to go with. Even if we maybe thought about it a little bit longer, would realize that it's not good for us. It's so easy to kind of fall into this trap of go, go, go all the time. I have this job, I have these kids, I have this stuff to do. Like, I'm just going to do the easiest, fastest thing that I possibly can. And, that convenience aspect will ultimately kill us in the long run. This wise colleague of mine, I remember we were in the office one time and he was like, oh, the water filter's broken. And obviously I work for a wellness company. Let me just give that caveat because not everyone would have this mindset. And I was new, so I was still learning. But he was like, oh, I wouldn't drink that tap water. And I was like, well, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And he's like, actually, what doesn't kill you just kills you slowly. I was like, wow, that was like 5 years ago. And I will never forget that because that mindset of like just needing to slow down, understand, and decide what you want to put into your body. Don't just do it because it's the easiest or what's in front of you or what has the flashy commercial or what you grew up doing. Maybe it seems like the best option, but what is best? Is having the cleanest, sparkliest bathtub really your priority, or is like being healthy and being well and
Right.
understanding your body and living longer your priority.
Hmm.
Are we going to
Yeah,
prioritize the bathtub over our, and there probably is a solution that's healthier for the bathtub too, you
that's right.
know?
There is.
Ah, gosh, I have so much to say about this, but um anyways, catch me up. So we talked about that, then you talked about this disorder that you have, how our bodies can naturally detox, things like that. So we have a liver, we have a kidney, we have all these different organs that are supposed to be detoxing us. So why isn't that enough? Like why can't we sustain these, chemicals and things like that?
The chemicals and things. One, I think it's because basically how we're structured, or what your genes that you inherited from a mother and a father, and how you react to environmental
Mhm.
things, just also internal things. And so I think that's the one big thing. But I think it is just a buildup of toxins too that
Right.
end up then causing it to show up. And then or you're consistently, like for me, I was consistently having issues, gut issues, bloating, so forth. And then it got to a point that I was fatigued all the time. And of course it has to do with methylation in your body and how you methylate, with vitamin B12 or vitamin B's, um, and then also with folates. And so when you start looking at all the product out there that has, folic acid in it there, that's not
Mhm.
actually natural, then different things that I would eat thinking, oh, it's clean, but then I would read the ingredients and I'm like, well, it's really not. So
Yeah.
basically reading the ingredients, knowing what that is. But I think with me, it just kind of built up over time. And then, then I started to research it more on my own, trying to figure out what was going on.
Right. What are some tools out there that you would recommend for being able to learn more about ingredients and toxins and things like that for someone obviously that doesn't have a functional medicine background or anything like that?
Um, there is a website called EWG. It's an environmental work group website, so you can actually go on there. They'll have all different kinds of things on there regarding, different chemicals and products on food. There's several different apps now. I think there's one called Yuka that you can actually scan, different products, and it will kind of give you a rating. There's
Mhm.
another one called Dirty Dozen. So there's several different ones out there. That I think there's one also called Detox Me that you can actually scan and look at the different products on there. So I, recommend any of those, and that's pretty much what I do. A lot of
Yeah.
times, if I'm unfamiliar with, a certain ingredient, but the good rule of thumb is if you can pronounce it and you know what it is,
Mhm.
it's probably generally safe. It's when you get into things that you can't pronounce and there's a lot of
Right.
ingredients that you begin to question what's in there.
If there's more than 9 letters in the word, then maybe it's not it's
Yeah.
not gonna be able to be
Yes.
detoxed out of your body.
Yes.
Yeah,
But you
wow,
kind
it's
of touched on this a little bit. You touched on, like naturally detoxing, like so.
yeah.
There's different ways that we naturally detox. Of course, making sure that you are getting enough hydration, enough
Mhm.
rest and sleep, but then also just like moving your body, exercising, being out in the environment. Um, Epsom salt bath, magnesium bath. I mean, there's just, infrared saunas, there's
Yeah.
sweating, and there's all these different ways to detox. And when you really look at these, um, I mean, they're all just really healthy lifestyle.
Right, free, simple things too that you can just
Hmm.
start doing now. I mean, yeah, if thinking back to kind of like even your products, like I saw that you have a dry brush, which is like I'm a little skeptical. I would like you to kind of explain the whole dry brushing thing to me. I'm not really on TikTok, so I never went down the wormhole of like how that helps your lymphatic drainage. I'm confused about that. But, you know, just moving around, propping your feet up on the wall at night is something that I do all the time that I recently taught my boyfriend how to do. And I heard him give advice to someone else recently of like, your stomach's hurting, maybe prop your feet up. I'm like, yes, I want him over that way. One little thing. But, like the lymphatic system is something that I feel like people are slowly starting to be more interested in learning about, and like this idea of dry brushing, things like that, that you really can start doing immediately.
Hmm. Yes. Um, I'm a fan of dry brushing. I mean, not only for the lymphatic system, but like moving around circulation. You can
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of the different things like that with different facial tools, gua sha tools, rollers too. I also like the dry brushing just for overall exfoliation, just to kind of like exfoliate your
Mm-hmm.
skin because it is your largest organ. So basically, just exfoliating it, exposing it, and then of course taking a shower and then making sure that you're moisturizing and sealing in the moisture. But I do feel that there's lymph nodes throughout your body. They can easily be felt, right below the skin. So that's another reason that I like doing it, and I can actually see different benefits of it on myself personally. Um,
Wow.
if I'm congested or anything like that, I don't know. I feel like I can see a difference in it when I do it personally, and some of the benefits that I see from it as far as helping me detox. It helps me really relax. So I think that's
Mm.
another benefit of it too.
Which obviously is one of the more important things is, the stress levels, things like that, which
Yes.
is a whole other wormhole
Yes.
that we could go down. But yeah, with the gua shaing, that's like one thing that I've really kind of dove into. And if I feel myself like I have like a little bit of like a sinus headache, anything, I will just do kind of like a 10-minute gua sha situation. Just look it up on
Mhm.
YouTube. There's so many out there. And my nose will start running immediately, and I'll just be able to move all of that lymph out of my
Mhm.
face, which ultimately I think has prevented a lot of colds and things like that I probably could
Mhm.
have just, kept it all locked in
Yes.
there if I hadn't done that, which is
So
it makes
the same benefit is from the dry brushing too. So
okay,
and
just more on a
and
larger
how you're
scale.
brushing and moving it towards your blood flow, and so yes, it's all correlated.
It's so intuitive, it makes sense. Like we're just organs all mushed in
Yes.
here underneath our skin, and to be able to like move stuff around, it makes total sense. But if you weren't raised that way or hadn't thought about it that way, it's
Yes,
a totally
which I'm
different
not
type.
an expert on lymphatic drainage. There's several people out there that are experts on it.
Mhm.
I actually go to a massage therapist she's been trained on lymphatic drainage and lymphatic massage, and so I feel like people like that are probably more in tune and can kind of give better explanation of it. I actually did like
Mhm.
a little interview session with her so she could actually show how to dry
So
brush
cool.
and kind of what it's doing to the lymphatic system. So
Super cool. Yeah, you have a pretty educational social media and things like that. So if you guys do want to learn more about this type of stuff, you can follow Mac plus Mitchell on Instagram, things like that. So, um, for people that, are kind of starting at square one, I kind of like to think about things in analogy of like chapters. So I view you on chapter like 20. I would say I'm on chapter 3, maybe. And so, you're over here probably, making small changes and things. For me, it's kind of like, well, I'm going to finish out my toothbrush or not my toothbrush, my toothpaste. And once I'm done with that, maybe I'll dive into kind of better toothpaste, things like that. But kind of what you were mentioning, like these free, more accessible starting points, thinking about kind of necessities. Like people drink water every single day, they eat food every single day, they wear clothes, things like that. Like these really simple things, not even digging into cosmetics or anything like that just yet. But where would you recommend they begin just with these non-negotiables in their home?
I mean, I think for me personally, like it started with a water filter. And so
Mm-hmm.
we're drinking that water for some time frame and then really seeing a difference in how we felt. And so then it
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, with me making stuff, then we were making different cleaning products. I was basically making them to see if they'd work, just
Yeah.
experimenting on different things. And I'm like, well, this does work and it's way cheaper. Um, so that's I think probably first initially. I mean, yes, I agree with the water filter, but then just looking at different ways, like even with detergents, if you can't go completely clean, then maybe choosing something that is fragrance free. Because there's
Mm-hmm.
so many different, a lot of fragrances that are synthetic fragrances and have different preservatives in it. They release formaldehyde, and so I think by just choosing something that is fragrance free. There's so many different synthetic fragrances out there that um, really wreak havoc on your body. So I
Yeah.
think that's probably the first thing. And just like you said, food. I mean, like making choices to try to decrease or minimize or even eliminate, all processed food.
Yeah.
Trying to eat more, even if you can't, even if it's not financially feasible for you to buy organic product, but still maybe just choosing product as far as, chicken, fish, vegetables, fruit, and trying to stay away from what I typically say, stay away from anything that's in the center of the grocery store and
Around
only
the
shop on the
edges. Yeah.
outside. Yeah.
Yep. I love that. And just soaking your veggies, things like that, and trying your best to at least clean them to the best potential. I know that like people are touching all over all the veggies and stuff like that as they go through
Mhm.
the store. They're being shipped, they're doing all these things, they're coming in encounter with a lot of germs. So just like vinegar and water, just soak them for 10 minutes, and then they even last longer when you do that too. It kind of helps preserve them naturally, which I've experienced.
I know. Actually, my husband this weekend, I mean, he knows I make a fruit and veggie spray. I don't know if he just, I don't know, but because I'm the one that goes to the store and gets everything. So I was sitting there spraying them, letting them sit, and I had them all lined up. He's like, "What are you
Mm-hmm.
doing? What are you spraying on there?" And I'm like, "I'm cleaning them." And so he was like, "Why don't you just wash them off with water?" And I'm like, "How many people have touched this? And I'm just going to run it under the faucet?" I mean, like, no, that's disgusting.
So that's a great example. So kind of talking about this all in or all out type of mindset. Not everyone has a partner that's on board, or they live with roommates that are unhealthy, or they haven't grown up this way, or they don't have access to water filters or like these fancier things. Can you talk about kind of the benefits of just doing something rather than doing, there's so many alternatives out there, but if you're doing nothing, that's going to be the most harmful thing. Just doing one small thing, I feel like, is better than nothing, right?
Yes, one small thing I do feel like is better than nothing. So, and like mine didn't happen overnight. It's just like a gradual change. You start, really
Right.
looking at products. So initially, I was just looking at different things in my home, just because of my family and my kids, trying to make it a better environment that way, and slowly but surely doing that. Um, and then of course with my own health issues, just the food and trying to really start to read ingredients. And occasionally
Mhm.
I would just still pick up stuff and say, oh, this says, this is gluten free, or but then I would start reading it and I'm like, well, it's really not that healthy. So again, I think it's just a matter of what your interest is and which area you want to tackle first. I mean, a little bit
Yeah.
is better than nothing. um, so if you want to tackle looking at, in your cupboards at first and like trying to clean out different foods that are processed and trying to get a more clean diet that way, or if you want to start looking at, your cleaning products and how you clean your home and the toxins that are there, and then basically, what you put on your skin. But I do feel like too, if someone is having different skin issues, if they're having psoriasis, they're having eczema, anything like that, then I would for sure start looking at immediately the foods that you eat and what you're putting on your
Mm.
body.
Right. Yeah, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, your skin is your biggest organ, so that's going to
Yes.
have a
Yes.
huge effect on everything.
Yes. And so really anything that you put in your body, your skin's going to react. If you're not, pleased with what you put in your body, your skin's going to react. It's going to have a reaction. Just like when you put something on the outside of your skin, it's also going to have a reaction if,
Yeah.
so I don't think
Maybe
there's really one perfect place to start. It's probably just whatever
right.
someone's interest is or but I do think our culture is changing, and I think a lot more people are looking for clean alternatives. And I think a lot of people, I think it's because there's so many different autoimmune disorders, so many different things out there.
Right.
But and I feel like that's also now, I feel like different vendors and manufacturers are kind of getting a little bit more on board and trying to offer something that's toxin free
Yeah, and like they
or a
can't
little bit
hide.
better option.
Right. Like these resources out there kind of exposing the reality of what these chemicals are and what these products are. You can't hide. And, so that's motivating, I'm sure, for them to kind of.
And I do feel like, I mean, I feel like it's I mean, I had a doctor tell me one time, like when tobacco came out and people had tobacco and they were raising it, and then they were starting to make cigarettes. It wasn't until 20 to 25 years later that they saw the results of what that caused. So you sit here and think about all the food and all the processed food and all the different products with all of the different chemical preservatives in it. Um, here we are now, probably another 15 to 20-year period when people are starting to see different issues. So I think that's why now there's a little bit more focus on the products themselves.
Yeah. It's kind of that time frame. It kind of goes through these cycles.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with how you say tobacco. You're such a cute little country girl.
I'm from Kentucky, just like you.
Tobacco. Well, yeah, I guess what's my excuse? I'm more of a city girl, I guess. So maybe we're beating a dead horse at this point. You've said so many amazing things, but back to my analogy of like kind of the chapters. If you were to give chapter 1, Kelly, any advice to kind of help her move through this process a little bit easier, you've done a lot of experimenting, trial and error, you've had all this education, met all these people, but what advice would you give her now to kind of help her move through that easier?
One, I think that you are the only person that knows your health and how you feel. And so I think really being tuned into that and paying attention to it instead of just kind of like, oh, I've had a reaction to something, but really trying to uncover and figure out, why you're reacting to that and what your health is. And, for so long, I just kind of just put it off as,
normal, I'm sure.
normal. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there is so much power in validating your experience, And even though there's probably a million other women, or even in your community, that are experiencing the same thing, doesn't necessarily make it okay. You're allowed to thrive and have a positive experience.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. That's good advice. I'll take that advice for myself.
Okay.
So kind of catch us up on what's ahead for Mac Plus Mitchell.
Actually, well, I'm excited about this podcast, but also we have a new website and we have different channels that you'll be able to interface with Mac Plus Mitchell, order product. We have been recently working on trademarking our brand. And so trying to finalize that so that our name is actually trademarked, our brand's trademarked. That's been a lengthy process, yes.
Yeah.
And now I am currently working, since I've been formulating all of the products and making all of them, I'm currently working with what's called a green manufacturer. So they only manufacture green organic type products, working with them to formulate and to actually manufacture my first product. So we're finalizing that. And then, of course, we have the retreat that's coming up in September.
Yes, everyone, little sneak peek. Kelly will be joining us this fall, and we're going to have a super interactive experience to dive more into kind of the things that we talked about today, her products, and how you can kind of take this home with you and make it your reality. So we're excited to have you.
Yes, I'm excited.
So where can we find you? What's your Instagram, website, things like that? We've already kind of talked about it, but what's your username and URL, stuff like that?
Okay, so it's Mac, M-A-C, and then plus spelt out, Mitchell, .com. And of course, it's Mac Plus Mitchell also on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Wonderful. All right, everybody go explore Kelly's products, and we look forward to seeing you in September.
Sounds good. Thanks.
See ya.